won't spend too much time on the intro, but I just want to clarify, this video does not go over, how to put little wires into other little wires and how, the really finer details of building a PC, because there are thousands of videos on the internet on that topic. But what I am here to do is explain everything that goes into behind building a PC. So the planning, where you get the parts from, how to know if your parts fit together, how you know it's going to fit in your room, etc. So let's get at it. So when building a PC, there are about 5 good steps that go behind it. So the first one is planning, of course. So you need to plan out everything, how it's going to fit, what parts you're going to use, what's your budget, where are you going to put it, how powerful it is, what are you going to run on it. So there are tons of factors that go into planning. Second up, you're going to need to order the parts. So once you figure out what parts you're going to get in the planning stage, you're going to order all those parts. And then once your parts arrive, you can spend a couple hours on your desk tinkering away, putting together your PC while following a tutorial. I recommend. Don't do it all by yourself. If something doesn't feel right, look it up how to do it. And the fourth thing that you want to do is final checks. So before turning on your PC, you don't want anything to break, because PCs can cost a lot of money and little bits of your PC can get stuck or broken, and when you turn it on, it might fry them. So you want to do final checks before actually turning on the PC. And the fifth thing is installing all the software. So you're going to want to take another Windows laptop, put it on a hard drive, all that extra stuff. But once again, there are tutorials on that. So that's pretty much the 5 main things that you're going to want to do behind building a PC. So once you start your planning phase, there is one website that I really recommend using. This is
Pcpartpicker is just an amazing website to be using when building your PC. So I'll go more in detail later about why it's so good, but you pretty much just choose a CPU. I'll go with a nice budget Ryzen 5, and there you go. It shows the price of it, gives you a link as well to how to get to it. And then if you go back, you can say what CPU cooler works the best. You can say thermal right, choose a motherboard, keep going, and you've got everything that you need right here. And then once you've put it all together, it tells you if it works or not. But
now, before you go over all of that, Pcpartpicker, figuring out other parts, you should figure out what you're going to use the PC for. So are you going to be using it for gaming, rendering, just casual light use? Do you need another desktop for work? Well, once you figure that out, how long are you going to use it? Do you really need to go overkill? So some games are more CPU intensive. So if you play, a game like Dark Souls, that's, mainly focused on graphics. But if you play something like BeamNG, which is an AI rendering software, you need as much CPU power as possible. So you need to figure out what kind of games you're going to be playing and how you're going to go through with that, what you need to focus your power on. There are tons of things that go into building a PC, and it can get really stressful and overwhelming when you look at everything you have to do. What I really recommend doing is planning every single little detail out, starting with how much space do you have, and what can you fit in that space. Now, with all of this space, you might still be wondering, why would I go with such a small and tiny ITX build? Honestly, I figured that if I want to take my PC with me to uni, I want to be able to do high level resolution for 3D rendering when I want to design or build anything digitally. And I noticed that typical PC cases are massive. You can fit like 2 or 3 ITX cases in the same amount of space that those normal full tower cases take up. And to me, that just sounded insane that you could fit and get the same amount of performance out of a little PC like this in half the size. However, at first, I was actually looking into a super aesthetic white O11 build. But when I saw this image of the fractal Terra literally fitting inside of that case, I realized my best bet would actually be going with an ITX case. And then I discovered this absolute beast. This is the Dan A4H2O. This case allows for a 240mm radiator at the top in order to cool the CPU, while also having more than enough space for a full-size graphics card. However, the best option for me was still a smaller 2-slot instead of a full-size GPU. I mean, it could easily fit a 4080 inside of this. Now that I knew which case I wanted, I headed straight back to Pcpartpicker to figure out what parts I would use to keep the budget under $1,600.
And now here we are back on Pcpartpicker. So this is great example of why it's perfect to use. Warning, these parts have potential issues, see details below. So right here it tells me that the motherboard, which I'm choosing to use, might have an older BIOS which won't support my 14th Gen i5, which I want to put in it. But it says if it is using a BIOS version, you just have to update it. So it's a warning, but not an actual issue. And if it is an actual issue, for example, you try to add an extra 2 sticks of RAM, but your motherboard only holds 2, it'll tell you there's a problem and it needs 2 additional RAM slots, which is really just great. And then, as I also mentioned, it shows you the best prices. So here it says Amazon.com, but if you look down here, the motherboard, the best place to get it is actually Newegg, and it'll send you right to the exact link that you want. And then here at the bottom, I found that it does stay under $1,600, not including shipping though, and I found that this is the best configuration for my build. Now, another thing that I would really recommend doing is basically taking a large sheet of paper or several sheets of paper and covering your desk in it. Then you want to take your trusty measuring tape and look up all of the specifications for the sizes of everything you want. So you're going to want to check out how large your PC is going to be, how large your mouse pad is going to be, how long your mouse is going to be, how long your keyboard is going to be, and the sizes of your monitors. So this is just to make sure that your desk does in fact have enough space to put everything on it.
Now that you've just gone ahead and decided which parts fit together and will be the best for you, so depending on your budget, how much space you have, and all that kind of stuff, you're going to have to order them from a supplier. And the supplier that I would most recommend using is Amazon, because they have fast shipping and an excellent return policy. And it's really important that where you order your parts from, they have a return policy, because what can happen sometimes is that parts may be dead on arrival, which means the software just won't work. So even if you don't break them, physically yourself, and you put them in and they just don't work, that means they were dead on arrival. And so you need to quickly return them and try and get your money back and get another part sent in.
Okay, here we go. This is the PC build starting now.
Starting now, I said. Little did I know that I was about to spend 40 minutes mounting a single bracket.
So we'll be taking the motherboard out. All the bobs and whistles in there.
Okay, enough of that. Let's get on to mounting actual parts like the SSD to start.
So as you can see, I just slotted in this M.2, my second 1TB one, and that will be screwed right in there. And then there we go, that's my second M.2. So storage is in, everything's Looking good. Plugged in.
Looking good, I said. It's all plugged in. I was right about it being plugged in, but you know what wasn't plugged in? My camera, apparently, because I have zero footage of me slotting in the RAM. You know, putting in the first SSD and even putting in the CPU. Because apparently I'm not allowed to have that footage, so we're gonna have to move on to just putting the motherboard in the case just like that. So before I can get started on putting in the motherboard, I'm gonna have to take out the power supply bracket. This is just so that I have enough space to fit the motherboard, and also because once the motherboard's in, you have to separately wire up all the cables, which you'll see in a second, to get it all working.
Careful, SpongeBob! Careful, SpongeBob! SpongeBob, careful! Careful, SpongeBob! Careful, SpongeBob! Careful, SpongeBob! Careful, SpongeBob!
Patrick, the lid's already off.
Motherboard's a little.
Okay.
Okay, so now that the motherboard was installed, it was time to just plug in a couple of the main wires. So those are the ones that are routed from the case, like the on button, the Type-C cable, audio, USB, and all that stuff, to the motherboard itself. Next, I had to mount the fans onto the radiator, make sure that's all up and working for the AIO to actually cool the CPU. Took a bit of finicky, like I had to take it in and out a couple of times to get it fit in perfectly, because it was, I'll be honest, it was a bit of a tight fit, but I was able to get it in there, screwed in eventually. So the next step after getting the radiator up and mounted, it was time to work on actually mounting the hot plate to the CPU. And so to do that, you have to just first mount a small bracket onto the hot plate itself. And as you can see, I'm watching a tutorial to do this because I'm not a professional. This is my first time ever actually building a PC, and it's always important to like watch tutorials. So this guy's doing it in the same Dan A4H2O. So it's just a really good tutorial. I'll link it in the description. So it did, as I already said, it did take a bit of like moving around to get it all good and in, and then I was using extra hot paste for some reason, because there's usually on the hot plate it's already there, so you don't actually need any extra stuff. So, you know, I put it on the CPU anyways. Okay, wow, this is taking me forever to get this hot paste out. Doing everything but put it on. That's great. And now I have no more footage. Oh, great, the disappearing footage strikes again. Yippee! Alright, so obviously the hot plate is mounted now, so the CPU cooler is up and running. So first, I just have to mount a couple of these wires and put it all together, because at the moment nothing was connected. And this mess of wires you see here is pretty much all of the power cables that I just put on and into the power supply. So now all of those cables are mounted on the power supply, and then I just put it in there. And this process took me a lot longer than it looks. So first I mounted it, and then I spent an unbelievably long amount of time putting those pin cables into the right sections. So it takes forever to get every single cable plugged in and everything routed with power, and you're going to have problems after that. So with everything else complete, the final step pretty much was not final step, but you know what I mean. All that was left for me to do for putting parts together was just simply slotting in the GPU. So this took a couple tries. You have to be really careful with it. I couldn't imagine doing this with a larger GPU. I mean, I had a very small GPU. Like if it was bigger, 4070 or 4080, I'm not sure if I would have been able to do it, because cable management in ITX cases is impossible. So it took me a minute to get it all set up and done, but once it was in and wasn't too much of a problem. So I put it in upside down because that was my technique, was because the pin cable is at the top of it. So if you turn it upside down, it's like you're putting it downwards, which makes it easier than going up. So that's just a small tip that I used and helped me out a lot with. And then it was also easier to route the cables on underneath since it was facing upward. So there you go. Next up is everybody's favorite part, trying to make it work. So once you get everything put together, it takes a very long time. Well, it took me a very long time to actually get it working once all the parts were together. And that's what we love. It's troubleshooting. So I didn't have to spend too long with troubleshooting. The issue was that it took me a very long time to download Windows onto a USB stick because my old PC was extremely slow for like read and write speeds. So it took a very long time to do that. And then once I managed to get it over to the other PC, it wouldn't go into Windows. Like I was simply unable to do it. So you can see me, I just watched so many YouTube videos. It was sitting there for about an hour or two just trying to figure out what's going on. Why can't I access it? So honestly, it does take time, and you have to persevere through problems because you're like, oh, I finally built my own PC. You're so excited to use it, and then you have to do all of this troubleshooting just to get it working in Windows. But it didn't take me too long, and eventually I was able to get it all onto USB drive and done.
And then there you have it. Your PC is up, running, and fully completed. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you found it helpful, please say so. Drop a comment down below, and hopefully also like the video to show support to my channel. Thanks so much if you watched to the end. Have a great day.